The emergency council chamber on Nexus Prime had never seen such panic. Representatives from across the Galactic Confederation floated, stood and swayed in their designated atmospheric zones, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of desperation that the universal translators struggled to process. Elder Zephys of the Zalani spoke first, her crystalline body reflecting the dim emergency lighting in sharp, anxious patterns. The Vortex swarm has consumed the Kepler 442 system. 17 billion Nefri souls, gone in 3 standard days. The Nefri delegate, Ambassador Gasta, compressed his gaseous form in what his species expressed as grief. My people had no time to evacuate. The swarm's bioships adapted to our atmospheric defenses within hours. They learned our weaknesses and used them against us. Councillor Verdant Branch, representing the plant-like Sylvans, rustled her leaves in distress. Our defensive networks have failed completely. The swarm absorbs our technology and improves upon it. We are feeding our own destruction. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of life support systems maintaining dozens of different atmospheric requirements. The truth hung heavy in the recycled air. The Galactic Confederation was losing a war they had never wanted to fight. The Vortex swarm had appeared at the galaxy's edge 18 months ago. At first, the Confederation had tried diplomacy. The galaxy's peaceful species had spent millennia resolving conflicts through negotiation and mutual understanding. War was a concept they had abandoned long ago, relegating it to historical archives and cautionary tales. But the swarm did not negotiate. They did not communicate in any way the galaxy's finest linguists could understand. They simply consumed, adapted, and moved on to the next system. Elder Zephys accessed the tactical display, her crystalline fingers interfacing directly with the quantum processors. A 3-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, showing the Confederation's territory in soft blue and the swarm's expansion in harsh red. The red zones were growing. They move through space like a plague, she said, her voice harmonizing in the crystal formations of her throat. Each world they take makes them stronger. Each ship they destroy becomes part of their fleet. We cannot fight them with conventional methods. Because we have no unconventional methods, Admiral Tethvar of the Aquarian Defense Force admitted. His scaled hide shifted from blue to gray, a sign of deep shame among his people. We have maintained peace for over 2,000 years. Our weapons are designed to disable, not destroy. Our ships are built for exploration, not war. The Confederation had tried everything their advanced civilizations could offer. They had deployed energy shields that the swarm learned to penetrate. They had used quantum disruptors that the swarm adapted to and turned against them. They had even attempted biological warfare, only to watch in horror as the swarm incorporated their weapons into their own bioships. What about the warrior species? Asked Ambassador Gasta, his form flickering with desperate hope. The archives speak of races that specialized in combat. Councillor Verdant Branch's leaves drooped. The Korthak died out 3 centuries ago. The Vextari chose voluntary extinction rather than continue their violent ways. The Mandari joined the deep space exploration missions and have not been heard from in 50 years. We bred war out of ourselves, Elder Zephys said quietly. We chose peace, growth, and understanding. We became gardeners of the galaxy, not its guardians. The tactical display updated, showing 3 more systems under swarm attack. The red zones expanded like an infection spreading through healthy tissue. How long do we have? Admiral Tethvar asked, though his color had already shifted to the deep gray of resignation. At their current rate of expansion, they will reach the core worlds within 8 standard months, Elder Zephys replied. Nexus Prime will fall within 10. The chamber erupted in multiple forms of panic. The Nefri delegate dispersed into smaller gas clouds before reforming. The Sylvan representative began shedding leaves like tears. Even the usually calm Zalani flickered between crystal formations rapidly. Then we must send the call, Councillor Verdant Branch said, her voice barely above a whisper. The call, the last resort. A broad-spectrum distress signal sent to every corner of known space, begging any civilization capable of warfare to come to their aid. It was an admission of absolute failure, a declaration that the galaxy's most advanced and peaceful species could not protect themselves. The signal will reach species we have never contacted, Admiral Tethvar warned. We know nothing about their intentions or their methods. What methods could be worse than extinction? Elder Zephys asked. The vote was unanimous, though heavy with reluctance. The Confederation would send their desperate plea across the stars, hoping that somewhere in the vast darkness, someone would hear their call and come to help. The message was crafted carefully, translated into every known mathematical and linguistic pattern. It spoke of the Confederation's peaceful nature, their technological advancement, and their desperate need for military assistance against an enemy that threatened all life in the galaxy. To any civilization receiving this transmission, the message began, "The Galactic Confederation faces extinction. We are a peaceful alliance of species committed to growth, understanding, and the preservation of life. We have never sought conflict, but conflict has found us. The entity known as the Vorthak Swarm threatens to consume our worlds and our people. We have exhausted all diplomatic and defensive options. We beg for assistance from any species capable of military action. We offer our technology, our resources, and our eternal gratitude to any who would aid us in this dark hour." The signal was broadcast from every major communications array in Confederation space, sent racing toward the galaxy's edges at faster than light speeds. It would take time to reach the outer systems, more time for any response, and precious time they did not have. As the council dispersed, each representative returned to their homeworlds to prepare for either salvation or annihilation. They had no way of knowing that their signal had already been received by a small, yellow star system on the galaxy's outer rim. On a blue-green world called Earth, radio telescopes and quantum communications arrays detected the alien transmission. The message was decoded within hours by Earth's finest linguists and mathematicians. When they understood what they were reading, the information was immediately classified and sent to the highest levels of Earth's unified government. Humanity had been alone in the universe for so long that the existence of alien life was revolutionary. The existence of alien life asking for military help was something else entirely. In secret briefing rooms and classified facilities, Earth's leaders read the desperate plea from the stars. They saw the technical specifications of the enemy, the tactical reports of failed defenses, and the projections of galactic extinction. For the first time in human history, someone else needed Earth's help. Someone else needed humanity's particular talents for violence, adaptation, and survival. The response was swift and unanimous. Earth would answer the call. But the Galactic Confederation had no idea what they had just invited into their corner of the universe. They had asked for warriors, and humanity had spent its entire evolutionary history becoming the perfect predators of a world that tried to kill them every single day. The help they had begged for was coming. Whether they would consider it salvation or damnation remained to be seen. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Nexus Prime system, with a flash of exotic radiation that made every sensor in the area scream warnings. Elder Zephys felt the crystalline matrices in her body resonate with the energy discharge, a sensation she had never experienced before. Unknown vessels. "This is Nexus Prime Traffic Control. Admiral Tethavar transmitted on all frequencies. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came back in perfect galactic standard, though spoken with an accent that somehow made the translated words sound sharper. "Nexus Prime Control, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Expeditionary Force. We received your distress call. We're here to help." The relief in the control room was immediate and overwhelming. Help had come. But as the human ships moved closer, that relief began to mix with confusion. The vessels were unlike anything in the Confederation database. Where galactic ships were smooth, flowing designs that worked with space rather than against it, these human craft looked like they were built for war, angular, aggressive, covered in what appeared to be armor plating and weapon systems that served no obvious defensive purpose. Commander Chen, Admiral Tethavar replied, "We welcome your assistance. Please proceed to Docking Bay 7 for formal diplomatic contact." "Negative, Admiral. We'll need a full briefing on enemy capabilities before any formal meetings. Time is a luxury we don't have." The human flagship, a massive vessel called the UES Indomitable, docked with Nexus Prime's diplomatic station with mechanical precision. When the airlocks opened, the first humans to set foot in Confederation space walked through wearing what could only be described as battle armor. Commander Sarah Chen was a woman of average height by human standards, but something about the way she moved made the welcoming committee instinctively step back. Her dark eyes swept the reception area with the efficiency of someone cataloging threats and advantages. Behind her, a team of humans spread out in what the aliens would later learn was called a tactical formation. "Commander Chen," Elder Zephys began, her crystalline voice chiming with formal diplomatic protocols. "On behalf of the Galactic Confederation, we welcome you to—" "Ma'am," Chen interrupted. "With respect, we can handle the diplomacy later. Right now, I need tactical data on this swarm, current fleet positions, and a real-time intelligence briefing. Every minute we spend on ceremony is a minute they use to get stronger." The directness was startling. Confederation species approached even urgent matters through layers of courtesy and mutual understanding. This human had walked into their capital and immediately demanded military information as if she owned the place. "Of course," Elder Zephys managed. "Please follow me to the Strategic Command Center." As they walked through the corridors of the station, the humans moved like a pack. They watched corners, checked escape routes, and constantly communicated through subtle hand signals. It was behavior the peaceful species had only seen in nature documentaries about predatory animals. The Strategic Command Center was the heart of Confederation defense planning, a vast room where holographic displays showed the current state of the war. The red zones representing swarm territory had grown since the distress signal was sent. "Commander," Chen stepped up to the main display and began studying it with an intensity that made the alien commanders uncomfortable. Her team spread out around the room, each human focusing on different aspects of the tactical situation. "This is bad," Chen said finally, "but not hopeless. Your problem is that you've been playing defense against an adaptive enemy. That never works." "We attempted offensive operations," Admiral Tethvar protested, his scales shifting to defensive colors. "We lost 60% of our fleet." "Because you tried to fight them like they were another peaceful species," one of Chen's subordinates said. The human wore the insignia of a tactical specialist. "You used minimum necessary force, tried to disable rather than destroy, and gave them time to adapt." "We do not believe in unnecessary destruction," Counselor Verdant Branch said, her leaves rustling with distress. "All life has value." "Ma'am, I respect that philosophy," Chen replied. "But this enemy doesn't share it. Look at these attack patterns. They're not trying to conquer or negotiate. They're trying to consume everything in their path. You can't reason with cancer." The humans began analyzing the tactical data with a speed and focus that amazed the Confederation officers. They identified patterns the aliens had missed, suggested countermeasures that sounded almost barbaric, and discussed casualty ratios with a casual efficiency that was deeply disturbing. "We'll need to establish forward operating bases here. Here and here," Chen said, pointing to positions that were dangerously close to active combat zones. "We'll use the swarm's adaptation cycle against them by feeding them false tactical data through captured bioships." "You want to capture their vessels?" Elder Zephys asked, her crystalline form flickering with alarm. "Those ships are biomechanical. They're partially alive." "Even better," Chen replied. "Living systems can be tricked, poisoned, or turned against their makers. We've done it before." The casual mention of biological warfare sent ripples of horror through the alien commanders. The Confederation had banned such weapons millennia ago, considering them too cruel for civilized use. "Commander," Admiral Tethvar said carefully, "perhaps we should discuss acceptable rules of engagement." Chen turned to face him, and for a moment, the Aquarian officer saw something in her eyes that reminded him of the ancient predators from his homeworld's prehistoric oceans. "Admiral," she said quietly, "you called for help because you were losing. You're losing because you're fighting a total war with peacetime restrictions. We didn't come here to lose politely. We came here to win." The human tactical specialist pulled up a new display showing swarm bioship configurations. "These vessels are designed for rapid adaptation and resource absorption. Standard Confederation weapons are energy-based, which means the swarm has learned to absorb and redirect energy attacks. We'll need to use kinetic weapons, chemical warfare, and psychological tactics." "Psychological tactics against a hive mind?" Counselor Verdant Branch asked. "Even hive minds can be disrupted," Chen explained. "Introduce chaos into their communication networks. Force them to deal with contradictory information and they'll start making mistakes. We call it cognitive warfare." As the briefing continued, the Confederation officers began to realize they had asked for help from a species that thought about war the way they thought about engineering problems. The humans dissected the swarm's strengths and weaknesses with scientific precision, then proposed solutions that would have been considered war crimes in any civilized conflict. "What's your species' background in military operations?" Admiral Tethvar asked, dreading the answer. Chen exchanged a look with her team. "Admiral, my species evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill us. Weather, geography, wildlife, disease, and each other. We've been at war with something since we learned to use tools. We've fought wars across every environment imaginable and invented new ways to kill each other faster than we could invent ways to stay alive." "Your world sounds horrible," Elder Zephys said. "We call it home," Chen replied. "And it taught us that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to be more dangerous than the things trying to destroy it." The meeting concluded with humanity taking operational control of the war effort. The Confederation species would provide logistical support, intelligence, and technological resources. The humans would handle the actual fighting. As the alien commanders dispersed to inform their governments, they carried with them a troubling realization. The help they had begged for had arrived, but their saviors were creatures forged by a world that had turned violence into an art form. In the privacy of the human flagship, Commander Chen addressed her senior staff. "Initial assessment?" she asked. "They're soft," her tactical officer replied. "Technologically advanced but completely unprepared for real warfare. They've been trying to fight apex predators with gardening tools. Can we win? Ma'am, this swarm is impressive, but they've never faced a species that considers war a natural state of existence. They're about to learn why human beings are the only species to weaponize everything from sticks to antimatter." Chen nodded. "Signal the fleet. We're moving to contact. Time to show these bugs what a death world produces when it gets angry." The first engagement between human forces and the Vorthak swarm took place in the asteroid belt of the Tau 7 system. The Confederation observers, watching from a safe distance of several million kilometers, expected to witness another tragic defeat like all the others before. Instead, they watched something that challenged everything they understood about warfare. The human fleet did not attempt to avoid the swarm's bioships. They flew directly at them, weapons blazing with a fury that registered off the scale of their sensors. But more disturbing than their aggression was their apparent immunity to conditions that should have killed them. "How are they fighting in that radiation field?" Admiral Tethvar asked, his scales showing patterns of confusion and fear. The human ships were engaging swarm biovessels in the heart of a gamma radiation storm that had forced all Confederation forces to retreat. The energy levels were lethal to every known form of life, yet the humans seemed to consider it merely another environmental hazard. "Commander Chen," Admiral Tethvar transmitted, "you need to withdraw. The radiation levels in that sector will kill your crew within minutes." Chen's voice came back steady and calm, despite the fact that her ship was taking direct fire from 3 swarm bioships. "Admiral, my crew is from Earth. We've been dealing with radiation since we learned to split atoms. This is actually pretty mild compared to some places back home." The tactical display showed something impossible. Human Marines in powered armor were boarding swarm bioships, not docking with them or attempting diplomatic contact, but actually breaching their hulls and fighting inside. Vessels that were partially alive and completely hostile to foreign life. Elder Zephys watched in horrified fascination as her sensors tracked the human boarding parties. They're fighting inside a ship where the atmosphere is pure methane and sulfuric acid compounds. "How are they still alive?" "Humans are really hard to kill," came Chen's matter-of-fact reply. "We evolved on a planet where the weather could melt steel, and the local wildlife considered us a light snack. Our equipment is designed accordingly. The first captured swarm bioship fell silent within an hour. The humans had somehow taken control of a vessel that was designed to be unboardable. When Confederation scientists requested permission to study the captured ship, they were denied access for biological contamination protocols. What they learned later was that the humans had turned the bioship's own immune system against it, introducing tailored viruses that reprogrammed the vessel's biological components. It was a form of warfare so advanced and so ruthless that it would have been banned by Galactic Convention if anyone had thought it was possible. The battle continued for 18 hours. 18 hours of constant combat in conditions that would have forced any Confederation fleet to retreat within minutes. The humans fought in hard vacuum, toxic atmospheres, crushing gravity fields, and radiation storms that turned space itself into a weapon. But it was not just their resilience that shocked the observers. It was their tactical adaptation. They're learning faster than the swarm, Counselor Verdant Branch observed, her leaves trembling with disbelief. Each engagement, they modify their approach. They're out-evolving an evolutionary weapon. The humans had quickly identified the swarm's greatest strength, their ability to adapt to enemy tactics, and turned it into a weakness. They fed the bioships false information through captured communication networks, making the swarm prepare for attacks that never came while leaving them vulnerable to assaults they never saw coming. Most disturbing of all was the humans' apparent enjoyment of the challenge. "This is actually pretty interesting," one of the human squad leaders reported over an open channel. "These bioships use a really clever adaptive immune system. I wonder what happens if we introduce a contradictory genetic sequence. Only one way to find out." "Sergeant," came the reply from another human warrior who was apparently fighting inside a different captured vessel. "I'm uploading a modified virus package now." The Confederation observers listened in growing horror as the humans discussed biological warfare techniques with the casual enthusiasm of scientists conducting an experiment. They talked about genetic payload delivery and immune system cascade failures, the way other species talked about the weather. "Are they actually enjoying this?" Elder Zephys asked. Commander Chen's response was chilling in its honesty. "Ma'am, my species has been fighting for survival since we came down from the trees. We're really, really good at it. And we've always been motivated by challenges that everyone else says are impossible." The tide of battle turned when the humans deployed something they called kinetic penetrator rounds. These were not energy weapons that the swarm could adapt to, but simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. The physics were unchangeable, and the swarm's bioships could not evolve around the basic laws of momentum and mass. But even more effective was what the humans did with captured swarm technology. Within hours of securing their first bioship, human technicians were reverse engineering its biological components and turning them into weapons against their former masters. "How did you learn to do that so quickly?" Admiral Tethvar asked during a brief communication break. "Sir, humans have been dealing with hostile biological systems since we invented agriculture," the human chief scientist replied. "We've been fighting bacteria, viruses, parasites, and biological weapons for thousands of years. This is just bigger." The final phase of the battle demonstrated why humans were considered the products of a death world. When conventional weapons proved insufficient, they resorted to what they called ramming speed. Human ships, damaged beyond normal operational capacity, were piloted directly into swarm bioships in controlled collisions that destroyed both vessels. But where the aliens saw senseless sacrifice, the humans saw tactical necessity. "Every ship we trade eliminates multiple enemy vessels," Chen explained to the horrified Confederation commanders. "The mathematics are simple. We're winning. But your crews," Elder Zephys began. "Evacuated to escape pods before impact," Chen interrupted. "We're aggressive, not stupid. Though some of my pilots volunteered to stay and ensure accurate targeting." The battle ended with the complete destruction of the swarm's advance fleet. Not a single bioship escaped to report back to the main force. The humans had achieved something the Confederation had thought impossible: a total victory against an adaptive enemy. As the human fleet regrouped, the Confederation observers tried to process what they had witnessed. A species that fought in conditions that would kill most galactic life forms. Warriors who turned biological weapons into tools of war within hours. Beings who approached lethal combat with the systematic efficiency of engineers and the enthusiasm of children with new toys. "What kind of world produces creatures like this?" Counselor Verdant Branch asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The answer came from the human database that Commander Chen shared with them. Earth's history was a catalog of extinction events, ice ages, volcanic catastrophes, and atmospheric changes that would have ended most civilizations before they began. But humanity had not just survived, they had thrived, learning to adapt to anything their world could throw at them. "They call their planet a death world," Admiral Tethvar reported to the Emergency Council. "A place where everything is trying to kill you all the time. They evolved not just to survive, but to become the apex predators of a planet that was actively hostile to life. And now they're here to help us," Elder Zephys said, though her crystalline voice carried notes of uncertainty. The first battle was over, but it was clear that the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you asked Deathworlders for help. The Confederation had wanted saviors, but they had received something far more dangerous: protectors who considered total war to be a reasonable solution to most problems. In the aftermath of the battle, as human engineers dissected captured swarm technology and human tactical specialists planned the next phase of operations, one thing became clear to the watching galaxy. The swarm had spent eons adapting to overcome any defense, but they had never encountered a species that considered adaptation to be just another weapon in an already vast arsenal. The war was about to change in ways that no one, not even the humans, could fully predict. The Vorthak swarm had consumed 17 star systems without ever encountering meaningful resistance. Their bioships absorbed energy weapons, adapted to defensive strategies, and grew stronger with each victory. They had faced the galaxy's most advanced civilizations and found them wanting, but they had never faced anything like the humans. 3 weeks after the first battle, the swarm's hive mind began receiving reports that challenged its fundamental understanding of warfare. Bioships were disappearing not through destruction, but through capture. Worse, they were reappearing as enemy vessels, their biological components reprogrammed to serve new masters. The humans have turned 12 of our captured bioships into weapons against us, reported Commander Chen to the Confederation War Council. Each one knows swarm tactical protocols and communication frequencies. We're using their own intelligence network against them. Elder Zephys watched the tactical display with growing amazement and horror. The humans had done something the Confederation had never imagined possible. They had made the swarm's greatest strength into its greatest weakness. How do you reprogram a living ship? Admiral Tethvar asked, though part of him dreaded the answer. Same way you reprogram any biological system, the human chief scientist replied with disturbing cheerfulness. You introduce new genetic instructions and let evolution do the work. We've been doing genetic engineering for decades. These bioships are just bigger lab specimens. The war had become something unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of the swarm adapting to overcome human defenses, the humans were forcing the swarm to adapt to increasingly impossible situations. Human tactical doctrine seemed to be based on the principle that if something could kill you, you should learn to use it as a weapon. They fought in radioactive zones that would sterilize most life forms, used biological warfare that would have horrified their own ancestors, and deployed weapons that had been banned by every civilized species in the galaxy. But most disturbing of all was their psychological warfare. We've been broadcasting conflicting orders to their bioships, using captured communication protocols, explained the human psychological warfare specialist, a woman whose job title would have been incomprehensible to most galactic species. Hive minds are efficient, but they're vulnerable to information warfare. We're giving them too much contradictory data to process. The Confederation observers watched in fascination as human ships approached swarm formations while broadcasting false tactical data through hijacked biocommunication networks. The swarm's bioships began showing signs of confusion, their coordinated attacks becoming erratic as they received orders that contradicted their hive mind's instructions. They're making the swarm fight itself, Counselor Verdant Branch observed, her leaves rustling with amazement. How is this possible? Ma'am, humans have been dealing with information warfare since we invented writing, Commander Chen replied. We've been lying to our enemies longer than we've been using metal tools. This is just applied psychology on a larger scale. The turning point came during the battle for the Kepler 442 system, where the swarm had established one of their primary hive nodes. The Confederation had written off the system as lost, but the humans saw it as an opportunity. We're going to assault the hive node directly, Chen announced to the shocked War Council. That's suicide, Admiral Tethvar protested. The bioships defending that system outnumber your fleet 50-1. Yes, sir, they do. Chen agreed with what the aliens were learning to recognize as the human expression of anticipation. But quantity has a quality all its own, and sometimes you have to use the enemy's strength against them. The human plan was so audacious that it would have been considered insane by any rational military doctrine. Instead of avoiding the massive swarm presence around the hive node, they intended to use it as a weapon. Human engineers had spent weeks studying captured bioship technology, learning how the swarm's vessels communicated and coordinated. They had discovered that the hive mind's efficiency came from instantaneous information sharing between all bioships in a formation. We're going to overload their network, the human tactical specialist explained. feed them so much false information that their coordination systems collapse. The attack began with human ships broadcasting captured swarm communication protocols on every frequency simultaneously. But instead of normal tactical data, they transmitted chaos, contradictory orders, false sensor readings, and impossible navigational instructions. The effect on the swarm formation was immediate and catastrophic. Bioships began firing on each other as they received conflicting identification signals. Navigation systems failed as they tried to process impossible positional data. The perfect coordination that had made the swarm invincible dissolved into confusion and friendly fire. But the humans were not content with simple disruption. "Deploy the genetic packages," Chen ordered. Human ships launched what appeared to be simple kinetic projectiles toward the hive node. But these were not ordinary weapons. They were biological warfare delivery systems carrying modified viruses designed to reprogram swarm bioships from the inside. The Confederation observers watched in amazement and horror as the swarm's own bioships began turning against their masters. The genetic packages introduced new instructions into the bioship's biological components, overriding their original programming and turning them into weapons against the hive mind. "You've turned their fleet into your fleet," Elder Zephys said, her crystalline voice carrying notes of disbelief. "Ma'am, humans have been domesticating hostile life forms for thousands of years," Chen replied. "We turned wolves into dogs, wild grasses into crops, and dangerous bacteria into medicine. This is just larger-scale animal training." The battle for the hive node became a rout. The swarm's defensive fleet turned against itself as human genetic warfare spread through their biological communication networks. Bioships that had been protecting the node began attacking it, following new programming that identified their former masters as enemies. When the hive node fell, the humans did something that shocked even their Confederation allies. They began studying it instead of destroying it. "You're keeping it operational?" Admiral Tethvar asked in alarm. "Sir, this hive node is a biological supercomputer that can process information faster than anything in our database," the human chief scientist explained. "We're not going to destroy it. We're going to reprogram it." Within days, the captured hive node was broadcasting human-designed instructions to swarm bioships across the galaxy. The hive mind's own communication network became the weapon that turned their scattered fleets against each other. But perhaps most telling was the human reaction to their success. Where the Confederation species saw a miraculous victory, the humans saw a learning experience. "This has been really educational," Commander Chen reported to Earth Command. "We've learned a lot about biological warfare, hive mind psychology, and large-scale genetic manipulation. The techniques we've developed here should be useful for future challenges. The casual way humans discuss turning an extinction-level threat into a research opportunity was perhaps more frightening than their military capabilities. They approached galactic warfare with the same systematic curiosity they brought to any other problem." "What happens now?" Counselor Verdant Branch asked as reports came in of swarm fleets surrendering or destroying themselves, rather than face human genetic warfare. "Now we clean up," Chen replied. "We'll need to reprogram or destroy the remaining bioships, establish monitoring stations to prevent future swarm incursions, and catalog all the biological technology we've captured for future use." "Future use?" Elder Zephys asked. "Ma'am, this won't be the last threat the galaxy faces," Chen explained with the matter-of-fact tone of someone discussing the weather. "There's always something out there trying to kill you. The key is to learn from each encounter so you're better prepared for the next one." As the swarm's remnants were systematically destroyed or converted, the Confederation began to understand what they had unleashed upon the galaxy. They had asked for military assistance and received Deathworlders who considered extinction-level threats to be interesting puzzles to solve. The war was ending, but a new chapter in galactic history was beginning. The Confederation had learned that sometimes salvation came in forms more dangerous than the threats they faced, and humanity had learned that the galaxy was full of interesting problems that just needed the right approach to solve. The last Vorthak bioship was destroyed 6 months after the humans arrived in Confederation space. But as the war ended, a new and more complex challenge began. What to do with humanity? The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any in recorded history. Representatives from every major species gathered on Nexus Prime to address a question that no one had ever imagined asking. How do you integrate a species of Deathworlders into a peaceful galactic civilization? The immediate threat is over, Elder Zephys announced to the assembled delegates. The Vorthak swarm has been completely eliminated. Their bioships have been destroyed or reprogrammed, their hive nodes dismantled, and their technology catalogued. Catalogued by whom? Asked Ambassador Keltar of the Centauri Union, his photosynthetic skin flickering with concern. By our human allies, Admiral Tethvar replied, though his scales showed patterns of uncertainty. They have claimed salvage rights to all captured swarm technology under what they call standard military protocol. The chamber filled with various sounds of distress. The humans now possessed biological warfare capabilities that surpassed anything in the galaxy's historical records. They had weapons that could reprogram living organisms, turn hive minds against themselves, and fight in conditions that would kill most known life forms. They saved us, Counselor Verdant Branch said, her leaves drooping with conflicted emotions. But they also terrify us. Commander Sarah Chen entered the chamber with her usual directness, accompanied by a small diplomatic team that somehow managed to look like a military honor guard. The humans had agreed to attend the session, though they had made it clear that they considered formal diplomacy to be a lower priority than what they called threat assessment and preparation. Commander Chen, Elder Zephys began, the Confederation owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid. You saved our civilization from extinction. Ma'am, we did what any decent species would do when asked for help, Chen replied. The question now is what happens next. That was indeed the question. The humans had proven they could eliminate any military threat in the galaxy. Their casual competence at warfare was matched only by their apparent inability to understand why this might make other species nervous. We've prepared a proposal for humanity's integration into the Confederation, Admiral Tethvar said, activating a holographic display. We offer full membership status, voting rights in the Council, and access to all our technological databases. Chen studied the proposal with the same intensity she had brought to analyzing swarm tactical data. This looks like a standard diplomatic package. Full membership, cultural exchange programs, peaceful cooperation. It's very generous, but Elder Zephys sensed the unspoken reservation. But it doesn't address the real issue, Chen said bluntly. The galaxy is a dangerous place. The swarm was just one threat. Our intelligence analysis suggests at least 12 other potential extinction-level dangers in this sector alone. The chamber fell silent. The peaceful species of the Confederation had thought the swarm was a unique catastrophe, not simply the first of many possible threats. What kind of dangers? Counselor Verdant Branch asked, though her rustling leaves suggested she might not want to know. Chen's tactical officer activated a new display. Rogue artificial intelligences in the Andromeda sector, evidence of aggressive hive minds in the galactic core, unstable wormhole networks that could allow hostile entities access to this region, and at least 3 species that show signs of developing planet-killer weapons. How do you know about these threats? Ambassador Keltar demanded. Because we've been looking for them, Chen replied matter-of-factly. It's what military intelligence does. You identify potential threats before they become actual problems. The human approach to galactic security was fundamentally different from anything the Confederation understood. Where the aliens saw the universe as generally peaceful with occasional disruptions, humans saw it as naturally hostile with brief periods of calm. What do you propose? Elder Zephys asked, dreading the answer. A mutual defense compact, Chen said. The Confederation provides technological and logistical support. Humanity provides military protection and threat neutralization. We handle the dangerous stuff so you can focus on growth and development. You want to become the galaxy's protectors, Admiral Tethvar said slowly. Sir, we want to make sure the galaxy survives long enough for your children to see it, Chen corrected. Protection is just the most efficient method. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Some species advocated for immediate acceptance of the human proposal, grateful for salvation and willing to trust their protectors. Others worried about creating a protection racket run by apex predators who considered total warfare to be a normal problem-solving technique. The compromise that emerged satisfied no one completely but addressed everyone's primary concerns. Humanity would be granted special status as the Confederation's Military Advisory Council, with authority to investigate and neutralize threats to galactic security. In exchange, all human military actions would be subject to Confederation oversight, and human technology sharing would be mandatory. This arrangement gives you significant autonomy, Elder Zephys explained during the final negotiations, but it also ensures that your methods remain accountable to galactic law. Chen exchanged glances with her team before responding. Ma'am, we can work with that. But you need to understand something about human nature. We're not going to stop being what we are just because it makes you more comfortable. What exactly are you? Counselor Verdant asked. We're the children of a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years, Chen replied. We learned to survive by becoming more dangerous than anything that wanted to hurt us. We learned to protect what we love by being more terrifying than the things that threatened it. The final agreement was signed with great ceremony, though the underlying tension remained. The galaxy had gained protectors who were arguably more dangerous than the threats they protected against. But perhaps the most telling moment came after the formal proceedings, when Elder Zephys found Chen standing in an observation deck, watching human ships conduct what they called routine security patrols around Nexus Prime. Do you think this arrangement will work? Elder Zephys asked. Chen was quiet for a long moment, watching her ships move through space with predatory grace. Ma'am, humans have spent our entire history learning to live with things that could kill us. We've domesticated wolves, tamed fire, split atoms, and turned the deadliest viruses into medicine. I think we can learn to live with you. And us with you? That's a harder question, Chen admitted. Your species chose peace, growth, and understanding. Those are good choices for a galaxy that's fundamentally safe. But this galaxy isn't safe, and now you know it. 6 months later, human children arrived on Nexus Prime as part of the cultural exchange program. The alien observers watched in fascination and horror as young humans played games that involved strategy, mock combat, and simulated survival scenarios. What other species considered entertainment? Humans used as training for a hostile universe. This is how they learn, Elder Zephys observed to Counselor Verdant as they watched human children, enthusiastically competing in what they called Capture the Flag, a game that appeared to be basic military tactics, disguised as play. This is how Deathworlders are made, Verdant replied, her leaves trembling with understanding. The galaxy had been saved, but at the cost of learning that the universe was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. They had gained protectors who could face any threat. But those protectors were the products of a world that considered constant danger to be the natural state of existence. In the end, the Confederation learned that sometimes the price of safety was discovering just how unsafe you had always been. And humanity learned that the galaxy was full of interesting problems that just needed the right application of controlled violence to solve. The arrangement would work, but it would change both sides in ways neither could fully predict. The galaxy now had guardians who considered extinction-level threats to be learning experiences. And perhaps that was exactly what it needed.